Shalom, my name is Rabbi Klein. I am part of the clergy team at Temple Sharey Tefilo-Israel in South Orange. I have a vivid memory that I want to share with you from when I was about 9 or 10 years old. My elementary school hosted a before school pancake breakfast for kids and parents or guardians. The parents were given a project to complete, which involved making an acrostic of their child's name using words to describe the child. Since my full name is Alexandra, this task was a bit arduous for my dad, who was in attendance with me that morning. How many A adjectives can a person really be expected to conjure at 8 a.m.? The reason, though, that I remember this so clearly sitting in the Hillside Elementary School library in Montclair is not because A stood for adventurous or awesome, but because that was the day I learned that when it came to me, L stood for loquacious. Before that morning, I didn't have any self-awareness of the fact that I am someone who is naturally quite talkative. Looking back now as an adult, I see very clearly that I have always been this way. I loved spelling bees and reciting funny limericks as a kid. I used to spend hours talking to friends on the phone in middle school and high school. And as my colleagues at Sharey Tefilo-Israel will tell you, I pretty much think aloud in our staff meetings. I'm someone who has always known in my core, in my kishkis, that speech matters and that there is strength in sharing words. The power inherent in speech to convey ideas, to connect and touch people, is the focus of this week's Torah portion, Emor, which means say or speak. The Parsha begins, Vayomer Adonai el Moshe, Emor el HaKohanim b'nei Aharon ve'amarta alehem. Adonai said to Moses, speak to the priests, the sons of Aaron, and say to them. The repetition grabs our attention. We get that this is a conversation, but is it really necessary to say, speak, said over and over again? If we are to believe, as study of Torah teaches us, that each repetition is meant to teach us something, what are we supposed to learn from this? It helps if we examine the grammar of these three words and begin to gain an understanding of this redundant phrase. First, we read vayomer, a verb in the past tense, meaning he spoke. Next, we read emor, a command meaning you speak. And finally, we read ve'amarta, future tense, meaning you will say. Three versions of the same verb in past, present, and future tenses. The medieval commentator Rashi says that this is because the command is first made to Moses, that he should emor, speak to Aaron's sons, the priests. The next command, ve'amarta, you will say, introduces what Aaron's sons are to say to their children. Essentially, God is saying, say this to them now, Moses, so that they will say this to the next generation. Now, anyone who spends time around young children knows the danger of an absent-minded four-letter word mentioned in the presence of curious ears. This is a lesson I am learning more and more each day with my 2-year-old daughters. Rashi's message, though, is that we have to do more than just watch what we say. Beyond being careful about what not to say, the Torah is teaching that we have to also be just as careful to make sure that we do say certain things. As I was studying this text, I couldn't help but think about the way that we talk in the public sphere in this country and the kind of speech that is so deeply troubling that we've heard in recent years. It is deeply disturbing when we hear these words from kids, from adults, let alone from elected officials and our leaders. And maybe they are saying them because they are ignorant at best, or that these hateful words of racism and anti-Semitism are truly what they feel. Either way, we know it's a natural instinct to want to point fingers and assign blame to the kids, to their adults, to our schools, to our government, to our society. But shame and anger is not going to fix the problem, because the lack of intentionality that we all bring to our daily speech is not limited to just these extreme cases. Rashi's interpretation teaches us not just that words matter, but that it is our obligation to pass down worthy, godly words to the next generation. It's not enough to say, we don't talk like that in this community. The text reminds us that we also share a communal obligation to model how we do talk, not just with awesome vocabulary words like loquacious, but to see it as our responsibility to make a point, to speak words of justice and fairness and love to our children, so that those are the words that fill their mouths when they speak to one another. If we listen this Shabbat, we can hear Moses' words speaking out from our Torah scrolls, and we can each become part of Bnei Aharon, Aaron's sons, empowered to disperse a message of acceptance and holiness to our children and to their children and their children's children. Parshat Emor teaches us that each one of us is a carrier of the sacred letters of the past. Each one of us is called to speak up today, and that each one of us can help to shape the words of our future. But we just have to speak up. Shabbat Shalom.